Good afternoon, everyone. Hello. It's so great to see all of you here for non-fiction today at the NGC Bocas Lit Fest. I'm Shivani Ramlochan, and I can tell that the packedness, that is a word I just made up, of this room is an indication of how exciting this next panel is going to be. Please welcome Marchelle Farrell, the author of Uprooting, and Safiya Sinclair. Safiya Sinclair, the author of How to Say Babylon. Uprooting won the 2021 Nan Shepherd Prize, and as you know, How to Say Babylon is this year's OCM Bocas Prize winner for nonfiction. Marchelle and Safiya will be led in conversation today by the eminently thoughtful writer and director Tracy Assing. Please welcome them.
Eminent. Hi, everyone. It's so great to see this room so packed. I'd like to welcome these two celebrated writers to Take Two at the Bocas Lit Fest. In the Caribbean, we have, lost most of our first languages. We just have fragments of what would have been our first languages left that we use. And the language that we speak is the language that, was taught to us. And so Safiya Sinclair and Marchelle Farrell have taken that language and directed it to tell their stories so truly that we can't help but see our stories there in all of our vulnerable beauty. With deep meditations about the meaning of home and how one finds their place in the garden of the world. They'll both be reading from their memoirs, and I'd like to start with Marchelle, who is the winner of the 2021 Nan Shepherd Prize for Nature Writing. I'd like to invite you to read first, if that's okay.
Yeah. Hello. There we go. Thank you so much. And it's amazing to be here. It feels kind of overwhelming, actually, having written a book about home and the meaning of home while not at home, and in fact, while trapped away from home during the 2020, which is the year that this book is set in, the year of the pandemic. And so I'm going to read a little bit from just after halfway through the book, actually. And I think the bit that I've chosen covers quite a lot of the themes of the book, the kind of complexity of what it means to be home, to be making a home in our colonial motherland while missing this home, and how kind of fraught that process can be, really. Crocosmia. A few clusters of strappy, accordion-folded leaves have appeared in the garden. They lengthened over the spring months, but now, as the hot July days stretch out, thicker structures appear from within them. At their tips, rows of bumps form, looking like teeth. They stretch and grow into zipper rows of buds that color from their starting pale yellow through orange to finally bright red, as at last they reveal themselves fully. Arcs of flowers held up on the end of strap-like leaves, opening sequentially from tail to tip, a deep blood red. One of the first to open hovers over the steps down to the patio. The red flowers hang suspended over our heads like ruby-throated hummingbirds. Having that thought makes my throat thicken and eyes begin to sting. I miss hummingbirds. The last time I saw them hovering overhead in numbers as thick as the crocosmia flowers floating over the patio was in Trinidad, and Trinidad has never felt so far away. I am deeply missing my childhood landscape, wistful and nostalgic for the gardens I grew up in. I remember sitting on the green-painted back steps, a blaze of Antigua heath cascading down beside them. Our cats would hide among the flowers and try to hunt the birds that came to feed on the nectar. Big-Eye Grives would sing their warning call, dive-bomb her hiding place until she slunk away. I remember the huge camelina, long racemes of maroon and yellow cascading over the gate at the side of the driveway. Next to it, the datura, the devil's trumpet. Large, creamy white bell-shaped flowers with their drowsily heavy scent laying thick over the bottom of the garden every evening. Its touch was poison, a deadly beauty. Other night-scented beauties gave life. The jasmine, flowers shining like stars whose leaves were used for tea. And my father's favorite, the lime hedge from which he made lime bud tea. It flowered sweetly just before the rains. Evenings also brought the bats to the calabash tree. They pollinated the night-blooming flowers, creating the large gourds that would follow as fruit. And at the back of the house, a bank of ginger lilies growing as high as the roof, brightly marked spiders living among them. The house on many levels, a ground level on one side, one floor up on the other, a basement level carved into the steeply sloping hillside in which it was set. That home and garden no longer exist, sold and demolished to build a huge new house occupying almost the entire plot. Even if I could fly back to Trinidad again, I can never go back home. My heart keens at the truth of it. A friend online recommends that I read Jamaica Kincaid's My Garden book. I search out a copy. It is not easy to get hold of, seeming not to be currently in print in the UK. When it arrives, I immerse myself in it like she immerses herself in the bath with the seed catalogue. It is a delight to read, and I chuckle along with her observations of being someone from the Caribbean gardening in a temperate place. She was born in Antigua, and the book largely deals with her experience of making and tending her garden in Vermont. I read along with deep pleasure, and then one chapter, What Joseph Banks Wrote, punches me in the gut. There on a page, she lists out common plants of the Antiguan garden, also common to the gardens of my childhood, and notes that none of them belong in the Caribbean at all. Bougainvillea, plumbago, croton, hibiscus, allamanda, poinsettia, bird of paradise, flamboyant. Relentlessly, she goes on and on, naming the flowers I have loved and missed, flowers of my grandmother's and mother's gardens. They were all imported under colonialism. She asks, who now might know what the island looked like before all that? No one knows. There is no memory of it. I am devastated. I realize that I do not know my island at all, that all that I am homesick for is a colonial creation. I have been raised to love a lie. The meaning of that love has been annihilated. It was not only the roses of my grandmother's garden that were alien imports. None of her flowers belonged there. Her great-grandmother, the one who was rumored to be native to the Caribbean, would have viewed the garden I grew up in as foreign territory. I have been rendered even more profoundly homeless in the world. The comfort of the gardens of my childhood proven false. Blindsided by grief, I go out and walk agitatedly through the woods and up along the path that climbs the hill above the village. All of this landscape is actively managed and maintained, and I realize as I walk that even here, in the English countryside, this landscape that I am gazing on is a colonial creation. Indigenous ancestors of this place would view my garden here, these neatly hedged and divided fields, as foreign territory. It strikes me that the only truly wild places free from human curation and management are the weedy verges, just as it was in the city. This country landscape is no more free from the scars of colonialism than I am.
Thank you so much for that. And now we'd like to hear from Safiya.